Taron, congrats on Rocketman.
Thank
You
you.
are ridiculously great in this movie. I just got to say, you are a revelation in this movie.
You're very
I
kind.
enjoyed the film and your performance so much. I think you were the perfect man for the job, and I think you knocked it out of the park.
Bless you. Thank you very much.
This movie is not your conventional song and dance musical. I think it's what you call a jukebox
Yes.
musical.
Yeah.
It does have some song and dance numbers. It has some fantastical elements to it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels unique in that sense. It doesn't. It feels like a hybrid of different types of musicals. How confident were you guys from the get-go that you were sort of going to be able to play by your own rules and pull this off?
I think one of the things that I thought was super cool about it, of course, it is a jukebox. Why are we both struggling
I don't
to
know.
say
It's
jukebox?
I didn't
Isn't
realize
a
it was
hard
that
word?
hard to say until I said it. Jukebox. Jukebox.
Must be something in the air.
It's a tough word.
It is a jukebox musical by nature of the fact that it uses well-known pop songs at certain points in the story. But I think what always felt cool and different about it was we knew that we wanted to try and tailor the lyrics to have meaning in relation to the story and be used as storytelling lyrics. So "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" is used at Elton's sort of lowest ebb, really, where he's truly feels like he can get no lower. And I always thought that was really exciting. There's something specific about Bernie's lyrics, the kind of poetic, interpretive nature of them that makes them really great for that specific thing of using them to tell story. And I think in terms of did I, believe, I always believed that we were onto something of a winner. I have great faith in Dexter Fletcher. I think he's my friend, so I'm going to say that. But I really believe he's an incredible filmmaker, and it was lovely of you to say that you thought I was exactly the right person to play it. And I felt very, I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I felt passionately that I could bring something to that character, something of him. He is simultaneously extraordinarily gregarious and hugely shy and vulnerable, and that contradiction I can relate to because, I'm sure lots of people can, but I feel quite like that myself.
We'd heard you sing as Elton before, most memorably in the animated a family favorite of mine, Sing.
Yeah.
And you were pretty damn good in that film, in that song alone.
Thank
but
you.
would you say that your vocal performance as Elton improved or evolved, once you geared up for the movie?
Oh, man, no doubt. We were in studio working on those songs for quite literally months before we started filming. I think the first time I went and did recording would have been February of 2018, and we didn't start shooting until August. And no, in fact, I'd gone in earlier than that. But anyway, the muscles you use for speech and singing are muscles, and so through use they become stronger. And practice, is of course everything, particularly when it comes to something like that. And the regularity and frequency of singing really felt like it just, the top end of my range opened up. I also remember at a certain point finding a gravel in my voice in those songs like Pinball Wizard and Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, having that kind of bit of rasp. That wasn't a facility that I had at the start of the process, and it feels a bit like finding out you've got a superpower when you're. That's a very, very grand way of me talking about my own singing, but I felt. I'm just trying to say basically that I felt it strengthen.
Yeah. Was the plan always for you to sing? Like, was that ever even a discussion, or was it just acknowledged from this? You have a musical background. Was that just acknowledged from the get-go that you were going to do all of your own singing?
To be honest, I think it really, if I go back in my mind to where it really started, was I think when we made, also with Dexter, we made a movie called Eddie the Eagle. Myself, Matthew Vaughan, Dexter Fletcher, a little-known actor called Hugh Jackman, and we recorded a song for the credits of the film, and I remember going in to sing my bit of it, and it would have been one of the first times I've been into studio, and Matthew called me about an hour after, and he said, "You can sing." And I said, "Well, yeah, that, I went and I'd just done the thing," and he said, "I've heard it, you can sing." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "No, but you can really sing." And from that point, he had been touting the idea of musicals and, getting all excited creatively. And then I remember on the set of Kingsman 2 in the spring of 2016, which is 3.5 years ago now, he said, "How would you feel about playing Elton?" Because Elton was involved in that movie. And it felt like a real moment in my life because I was aware of the project, and I emailed my agents to say, "What's the deal with Rocketman?" And they said, "Well, it's the job's been filled." Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling now.
No,
but it
no.
feels. What I'm trying to say is, it's felt like the closest thing I've ever got to fate playing this part.
But the job was initially filled when you reached out about it?
Yeah, it was going to be Tom Hardy for a very long time.
That's right.
But I think scheduling just never quite worked out, and he, frankly, I think got too old to play someone who starts their life in the film at 17.
You perform so much of Elton's catalog. I need to know, what is like the one song that just gets mercilessly stuck in your head for like days on end?
It's been different things at different times. I really obsessed over Your Song. It was one that I felt a real, because we were depicting the writing of it, it felt like a real responsibility performing that song as him, and I was very aware of where it was in the schedule and when we'd be doing it, and yeah, we spent the whole day just filming me singing that song at the piano, and it's captured live on set as well, which I really was insistent about. It just felt right, and I'm very proud of that bit in the movie.
Now that you've had some time to be able to reflect on the entire experience, when you look back to first landing the role, to first gearing up for it, how nerve-wracking was that? How daunting was it to take on this living legend?
At the end of the first day of shooting, I was convinced it was going to be a car crash, and that I was going to be remembered as that guy who had the audacity to think he could go and play Elton John and sing all the music, and I really, really, really had a little freak out in the car on the way back to my apartment after filming, and I think it just feels the enormity of it, and also just, Elton's one of those artists who people feel like they know and feel a sense of ownership over, and so, there's a lot of people that you don't want to let down, frankly, and also, excuse me, just drank a green juice before coming in. Also, I think I was very aware that for future generations, it might be that I'm their introduction to Elton John. People have short memories, and in 20, 30 years, someone might show their kid or their grandkid this, and they legitimately might not have heard Elton John before.
Right.
You just don't know, do you?
Yeah.
Who knows what the world's going to look like, and so that felt like a big responsibility too. But once we got into the swing of it, and once I saw what everybody else was doing, and how, I think every aspect of the filmmaking, it just felt like people were firing on all cylinders. Julian Day and his incredible costume design, and what Giles Martin was doing with the music. Dexter had this kind of very charged, galvanised sort of vibe to him, and you become less focused on yourself and your own anxieties, and it starts to feel like a very collaborative team effort, and you look around and you go, well, if all these people are nailing it to this extent, then you got to step up to the plate. And actually, once we got into the swing of it, although it was incredible hard work and very intense stuff to film, I did feel like we were having a great time. Yeah.
I was going to ask you what your toughest day on set was. It sounds like it was your first day.
That was tough to get over my own nerves and trepidation. There were a few things that were hard to film. I think the stuff. There was a day where we shot a restaurant scene where Elton's drunk and high, and
With his mother?
With his mother, and then with Bernie, and very, very angry, and in a really dark place. I think those scenes where he's in a really dark place of turmoil, those were kind of they're just not. You just don't feel you don't skip home at the end of the day, you know. But I'm proud of them. You know.
What was it about that first day that made you feel like you weren't bringing it initially?
I think I just, you know, I think on the first day I felt like I had to be Elton John in everything he is, the idea. And of course, you know, Elton John hasn't always been he wasn't an icon when he was 17 or whatever, and you remember that actually you've just got to play a real person who's in real situations, and you don't, you know, it's like they say of, you know, you don't play the king, the court plays the king. You know, the king does whatever he wants, and I think it's about that, really, not getting lost in the idea and the enormity of who he is, and playing him for a real human being in all their imperfections and you know, all that.
Yeah. What were the most valuable insights or words of wisdom that Elton John gave you along the way?
I think the thing that I found most freeing was that he just said, I want you to make it your own. I want you to, you know, I remember very early on we did 2 recordings where the thing that was most at the forefront of my mind was sounding exactly like him. And he called me and said, I think it's too, he said he basically just said, forget about sounding like me. Just own it. Be your version of me, and you know, fill it with kind of your own passion and your own feeling. I just don't think he was interested in hearing me try and do an impersonation of him. I think he thought it was a bit thin, but it scared. That was scary for me, because obviously people, you know, go and see a movie about Elton John and they want to see Elton John. You know.
Yeah.
But it was a very freeing thing he said to me, because he gave me a wonderful license.
It's obviously a warts and all depiction,
Yes,
which is refreshing, because you'd never know, especially when someone is associated with the film, how honest it's going to be about what they endured, and you know, it takes on his self-doubts, his self-loathing at points, his struggles with his family, with his fame, with his artistry, with his sexuality.
Yeah.
Were there aspects to it that you ever sensed at any point that he was nervous or reserved about putting out there for the public to digest?
No, not at all. It was that particular element of it was the thing that I always found very, very exciting about the script. I never trusted that it was going to survive the editing process until the movie was completed.
Right.
I think with Elton, it's, you know, I think that you're right. It doesn't happen very often, particularly when someone like that has such proximity to the project. I think that was allowed to happen because of who he is. To, you know, he's someone whose struggles with addiction are well documented. And I think his very specific type of personality, he really owns his demons, and they've kind of become his armour, you know. He knows that he's an addict, and he knows that he can't, you know, he knows he can't sit and have a cold glass of beer on a Sunday, you know, because that's not who he is in his DNA. And he also knows that the turbulent existence and lifestyle he led caused some imbalances that made him a tricky person early on, and, you know, there's no denying that. And so it's a testament to who he is that he allowed us to create a character, to create a depiction of him that celebrated that. I think the thing about Rocketman that I love is it's a celebration of a great human being, and human beings aren't perfect, and you still root for him and you still love him at the end, and I always believed that is what the movie would be. Creating a sanitized, totally perfect version of someone feels satisfying in the moment, but it's like junk food. It wears off quickly. And,
Sure.
you know, I think it's much, much more wholesome to see someone in, you know, through all of their challenging moments and all of their wonderful, glorious moments. And ultimately, I think you feel more. I think you learn more at the end of it.
What would you say that you learned about yourself throughout the experience?
And I'm far more comfortable in hot pants than I thought I would be. What did I learn from that? I don't know. I feel like this job was, in some respects, the most challenging that I've had, but I enjoyed it the most as well. And I feel like it for me, in my mind, it's a real, but just on a personal level, it's a real testament to the fact that to just putting in a lot of work and being very authentically creative and trusting that something good will come of it. And that's what I love about it. I watched it again the other night for, a lot of it anyway, at the Greek Theatre. We did a screening and I just, it just evokes memories of so many creative conversations with so many different people, and it's all there to enjoy. I don't know, but what I learned about myself, I don't know really. I definitely feel like I grew through it.
We do have to talk about the costumes.
Yes, we should. Yeah.
You can't tell an Elton John story without fully portraying the breadth and color of his wardrobes. What was the most challenging thing to wear? I'm just gonna assume it was like the winged devil that he walks into rehab with.
Yeah.
But tell me.
I mean, that one, sure, is tricky. Part of the physical comedy of him and who he is the impracticality of what he wears. It's so they're sort of the more cumbersome and tricky to play piano in, the more filmic and interesting they are. But that one was tough. That one was tough because it's got Swarovski crystals all over it, which means that you can't wash it. And I wore that costume a lot. So by the end of the shoot, it wasn't fresh, should we say?
It was graceful of them to allow the character to eventually just take that costume off, because he's still in the same set, but eventually he just loses it.
It's a lovely thing though, that idea. I remember reading that in the script and just thinking, wow, that's such a gorgeous idea, metaphor, I suppose, that he has this armor, this persona, and he charges into, the rehab room, and he's 6.5 feet tall with the horns and the heels, and incredibly imposing and intimidating. But through this process of recovery, he slowly starts to dismantle this thing until what you're left with is this guy in a robe, and he's vulnerable like a kid, and I really loved that idea in the film.
The transition from sort of being larger to life to just the human in front of you.
I think just from those barriers we put up to protect ourselves. That Elton John persona is the thing that he often says to me now. I don't, until I put my my Gucci tails on, I don't become Elton John. And that happens 10 minutes before the show, 15 minutes before the show. But that idea that as he begins to relax and those defense mechanisms fall away, so does his costume, and until he becomes the guy in the tracksuit, and rather than those audacious glasses and that incredible outfit, he's sat there in his civvies, for want of a better word, and he's relaxed and comfortable with who he is. The movie's about self-love and accepting who you are, and accepting your flaws. It's a movie about accepting your flaws and owning them, and accepting your mistakes. Yeah.
Did you keep any of the costumes?
I have the denim jacket that I wear in the Tiny Dancer scene because I just love it.
Yeah.
And I took the glass. I always liked the glasses I wrote your song in, and I always felt that had a sort of special place in my heart, that scene, and I really wanted those glasses, and I eventually got them, but I got them around just before Elton's birthday, and I didn't know what to get him, so I had his reading prescription put in them, and I gave them to Elton for his birthday.
Oh, that's great.
And that guy, it's amazing, his encyclopedic knowledge and memory of things. I put them in a leather case for him, and he opened them, and before he went, it popped, and without missing a beat, before he pulled them out, he went, "Your song," and he knew the glasses from Your Song, and I just remember thinking, how on earth do you, he'd seen one rough cut of the film months before.
Yeah.
There's something special about him, obviously.
There was a moment, there was a video from the film's premiere at Cannes that went kind of viral, where somebody had captured the standing ovation it got, and specifically your reaction to it. It looked like there were some tears shed. It looked like a truly special moment for you.
But before that moment, you're visualizing scenarios where everyone hates it.
Yeah.
You just don't know. You're only talking to people who are a part of it. You're talking to people who are connected to the project, and so the sense of relief I felt when you could feel, I know you can get me going again. The sense of relief that I felt, and frankly acceptance, was acute. And I sat with Elton John and Bernie Taupin, Dexter Fletcher, my mother and my girlfriend sat right behind me. It felt like a real moment in my life, and I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah. But it sounds like above all it was relief.
It was mainly relief, I think. Yeah, it was mainly relief, and also just there's a scene where Bernie Taupin and Elton meet. And,
I love that scene. And
I'm really proud of it. And Jamie's the most incredible scene partner. The mark of a great actor. Every time he does it, it's slightly different, and you completely feel the connection. Everything you do, he responds, and it's different, and it's just a joy to act with him. And but we watched that scene in the theatre, and I just remember Elton and Bernie grabbing each other's legs, and it was just like, it was just a very emotional thing.
Yeah.
It was really lovely.
And I think just the mark of a great musical that you can convey so much meaning and so much emotion through just the act of these two men singing to each other.
Yeah,
you feel that immediate bond between them, and you feel like these guys are destined to be lifelong friends and collaborators that they'd become.
Absolutely, their relationship begins and ends with music. That's the incredible power of music, and you're right. Yeah.
Have you read Elton's Memoir? That's getting a lot of heat right now.
I have. In fact, Elton asked me to read the audiobook, so I performed the audiobook, which so if you don't want to read it, you can hear me read it to you. But I'd read some of it before we started filming. I was very lucky in that they gave me sort of 9 to 10 chapters of it, which is what existed at the time for me to read and use as research for playing him. It's amazing.
Yeah. Is there anything from the memoir that you now wish was in the movie?
Someone else asked me that the other day. I think a lot has happened in Elton's life since, 89, 90 that's been amazing. And I suppose, it would be... You kind of see him fall in love, obviously, as a young man with John Reid, but it's not... it's ill-fated, should we say. But the bit in the book... in the last sort of act of it, where he meets David and has kids and he's sober and starts his AIDS charity, and that's very, very moving. And I suppose it would have been nice to see him fall in love in the book, because it's a journey of searching for love, I suppose. But also, I think the thing about Rocketman is none of the famous people in Elton's life are in it. Bernie, but John Lennon doesn't appear, and all those other incredible people who have been on his journey. But I love that about the film, because it sort of slightly exists in a reality that isn't ours. I'm sure it's got these elements of fantasy, but it's a kind of weird, reduced, distilled version of his life. So it's got this kind of fantasy, mythic kind of quality to it that I really love.
I got to ask you about these rumors circulating around Hollywood. I know you must have heard these by now, that you're going to be the next Wolverine. What is there a morsel of truth? Where did these come from? Can you say anything about it?
It's unfounded. The only morsel of truth to it is that I, have made it very obvious that I'm a huge fan of the films, like 99.9% of the rest of the world, and that's kind of all there is to it, really.
So you think it spawned from the fact that you've said that you're a fan of Wolverine specifically?
I don't quite know where it comes from. I I'm flattered but baffled by it. There's other characters that I would think I'd be more suited to. But I mean, you know, if there's one you want to play, it's probably that one. I think the joy of that part specifically is that there's a great acting challenge in there. The character's so feral, you know. I love the wildness of Logan, but I mean, I don't know if I don't know.
Well, and of course you have a relationship with the man who
I am
took on that mantle for
buddies
so long with Hugh Jackman.
Wolverine. Yeah.
You can list him as a referral.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's how it works, right? Like when you fill out a job application. And
yeah, exactly.
list
I'm
Hugh
mates
Jackman
with
as
the
a
guy
referral.
who did it before. He says I'd be good, but you know, if the phone rang, I would be, of course, very, very open to it. But it's there's no truth to it at the moment.
Gotcha. Cool, man. Also good to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Congrats
Thank
again.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.